And the old shall dream dreams, and the youth shall see visions, and our hope shall rise up to the sky. We must live for today, we must build for tomorrow. Give us time, give us strength, give us life. Give us time, give us strength, give us life. My mom, Jane, of blessed memory, she loved that song. And I have very clear, precious memories of sitting next to her and my sister Jessica, and the three of us harmonizing to the lyrics at the synagogue where I grew up. The same synagogue where Debbie Friedman also grew up and led some of her earliest musical compositions that changed Jewish music forever. Well, I can't recall a specific conversation with my mom about this song in particular. My sense was that it was one of her favorites because while it acknowledged the past, it focused on the Jewish present and, most importantly, the future. And I think she just loved singing, and doing it in synagogue with my sister and me made it even sweeter. My mom loved being Jewish. She grew up in Los Angeles, and while she occasionally attended synagogue, she went to Hebrew school and hated it like most. And she came of age in a predominantly Jewish community. And in her fourth or fifth career, she became a Jewish professional and was the executive director of that same synagogue in Minnesota my family joined when we moved there. She loved walking through the halls during religious school, seeing all of the learners at all ages, and she took delight in ensuring the congregants were able to mark their lives meaningfully in the context of the synagogue community at life cycle events. And she always loved the music. And since both of her children are leading High Holy Day services tonight, Jessica is serving as a cantorial soloist in Long Island, and well, here I am. You could say my mom and dad did their part in ensuring the Jewish future and fulfilling the vision of Judaism. That vision is, in 10 generations from now, our descendants will gather together to observe Kol Nidre, just as we have tonight. That our ongoing covenantal relationship with God will be just as strong then as it is now. Because ultimately, Judaism is future-focused, and our mission statement can be summarized in 6 words: Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Listen, Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. And on this sacred Kol Nidre night, it is time for each of us to realign ourselves to the fundamental purpose of our religious and spiritual lives, to connect with our God, and to acknowledge that each of us has a stake in creating the future. It is part of the inheritance that we will leave for the generations to come, and it is the key to our survival. The Torah, our tree of life, reminds us of this future focus. Towards the end of the book of Deuteronomy, as Moses is reaching the end of his life, he carefully articulates the future of the Israelite people. His faith in God remains steadfast, and Moses makes clear that he expects ultimately the Israelites will keep the faith too. Moses is leading God's people towards a future that he will not see. He will not enter into the land of Israel. All of the laws that he imparts on behalf of God are to create parameters for his people and their descendants in the land. Today, we still follow and interpret those very same laws. Moses understood that it is the future that was the focus of his life's work and the narrative of the people. While sure, his life was really important, and his unique relationship with God ensured the Israelites were redeemed from Egypt and lived up to their end of the covenant, Moses understood that while he and the people endured the challenges of the wilderness and the wonders and marvels and miracles too, it was all for the benefit of the future generations. It's all for the benefit of us. The vision of the future, the focus on tomorrow and the next day, are fundamental to our people's story, to our story. Tonight is the perfect time for us to commit to that future, to ensure that our descendants will find meaning in Judaism, in Jewish culture, in Jewish wisdom, and in Jewish living, just like each of us does. We, as part of a community of people who make up a sacred congregation, need to commit to doing our part to ensuring the Jewish future, not only for 365 days from now, but 15 and 50 and 100 years from now. Ari Wallach, the author and futurist, suggests that we need to take a significantly longer-term approach to our decision-making. In a TED Talk that previews some of the content of his recently released book called Long Path, Becoming the Great Ancestors Our Future Needs, Wallach describes his work as a futurist, a person who makes predictions on current trends. In his interactions with CEOs and his clients, he notes that thinking about the long term is getting increasingly shorter. Initially, people thought of the long term as 20 years ahead, and then it was less and less and less. And he jokes that the average long-range plan now looks ahead 6 months. He calls this short-termism and notes that many of the problems we confront as individuals, as communities, as a society, cannot be solved with short-term thinking. Wallach says that the world we live in, one with constant notifications, updates, and breaking news, prevent us from taking what he calls the long path. Long path is his approach to life that reminds us that we are part of something bigger than ourselves, and that while our own time is finite, we need to become the great ancestors our descendants need us to be. It ought to be no surprise that Wallach is also a proud member of our Jewish community and a product of our URJ camping system. And he notes, after all, we're the people who have dragged our story along to every outpost, the people who have waited on and insisted upon a future return. And just as our Passover story promises a transformation that does not happen overnight, the long path view says that yes, you can be an agent of change, not just a slave to the current climate, but it's going to take some work. By our very nature, embedded in our DNA, we have the capacity to be future thinkers, to be part of solutions to big problems. Increasing anti-Semitism, the rise of secularism in America, changes and patterns of affiliations to synagogues and other Jewish organizations, blindness to the diversity of our Jewish community's race, class, and gender diversity, and a substantial decrease in Jewish literacy and of diaspora Jews in particular, knowledge of Hebrew, just to name a few. But tonight, I ask you, what will your commitment be to securing the Jewish future? Whether you have children that are young or old, or you do not have children, as you consider your commitment, how will you ensure that its impact goes beyond yourself and your generation? Maybe you'll commit to lighting Shabbat candles regularly at home. Will you host friends and family for Shabbat dinner? Maybe this is the year to build a sukkah. You have 5 days. Though it is 6 months away, Passover is a wonderful time to gather family and friends, to mark time and tell our story. It was always my mom's favorite. What if you commit to bringing your children or grandchildren or nieces and nephews to Shabbat services once a month, or learn together how to make challah and stock the freezer? How can you continue to do the great social justice work that inspires you and encourage participation from people in your circles? These actions are not just Jewish things to do. They are the ongoing lessons to the next generation to ensure the vitality of our Jewish future. And I want to invite you to share your commitment with me after the Holy Day. You can email me at rabbi.steinman@bethshalomaustin.org. I expect a flood. And tonight, I commit to you as the next senior rabbi of this congregation, as your partner. Together, we will create a vibrant future for Temple Beth Shalom, for the Austin Jewish community, and for the Jewish people. In the months ahead, we will engage in conversations to imagine what this future can be and create a thoughtful, sustainable path forward. One of my most favorite stories, a passage I promise you're going to hear me teach and tell again and again, comes from the Talmud and is about the future focus of one of our tradition's greatest rabbis, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. The story goes that when the Romans were in the midst of conquering the land of Israel and the siege of Jerusalem intensified, all hope was lost. Rabbi Yochanan creatively makes his way out of the city and appears before General Vespasian. The two engage in a dialogue, and Rabbi Yochanan foretells that Vespasian will become the emperor of Rome. And amazingly, moments later, a messenger arrives from Rome with the news of Vespasian's election. So pleased with Rabbi Yochanan's premonition, Vespasian asks what Rabbi Yochanan could possibly want, and his answer is shockingly simple. Rabbi Yochanan says, "Give me Yavne and its sages, and do not destroy it." It is from Yavne that Rabbi Yochanan and the other rabbis of his era will come to create the Judaism that we all know, a Judaism not centered in Jerusalem and the temple cult, but a Judaism that is focused on learning, prayer in lieu of sacrifice, a Judaism focused on time, a Judaism focused on action and deed to better the world. Rabban Yochanan's request at the right place, to the right person, at the right moment, ensured the Jewish future and our Jewish life. We are all inheritors of Yavne, of the future that Rabban Yochanan and those other rabbis created, and we will be stewards of Jewish life for our descendants too. As the prophet Joel saw and Debbie Friedman reinterpreted, "And the old shall dream dreams, and the youth shall see visions, and our hope shall rise up to the sky. We must live for today, we must build for tomorrow. Give us time, give us strength, give us life." Let us all commit to our future together. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May this be God's will.